Next group of disorder is papillosquamous disorders. Papillosquamous disorder is very obvious from the name itself. This presents with papules with squamous, that is papules or plaque having squamous means scaling. So under this heading we will be discussing all those conditions which present with papules, plaque having scaling. One such important disorder is psoriasis. So let us begin with psoriasis. Psoriasis is chronic inflammatory condition. It is chronic inflammatory condition under the effect of various genetic, immunological and environmental factors. So it is a chronic inflammatory condition which under the effect of genetic, immunological and environmental factors may lead to erythematous plaque with silvery white scaling. So it is a chronic inflammatory condition. So first of all, remember that it is a chronic condition. It persists for many months, years. Okay, so this is a chronic inflammatory condition. Now there are various etiological factors, like I told you, genetic, immunological and environmental factors. Like there is HLA association which is seen, like HLA CW6. Similarly, immunological, because this is T cell mediated condition, and environmental because this condition might aggravate in winters. So there is role of genetic, environmental and immunological factors which lead to these erythematous. So these are red lesions, they are plaque. Plaque means solid raised lesions which are horizontally more than vertical. So these erythematous plaque with silvery white scaling, and there is lot of scaling over these lesions. Okay, so these are papillosquamous lesions of psoriasis. Now remember that this HLA association which I told you, that is HLA CW6, predisposes for juvenile type of psoriasis. Juvenile type, that is early onset psoriasis, while HLA B27 association, this is a very common association and strong association seen with Rhetus disease, while in psoriasis it is associated with pustular psoriasis and also with psoriatic arthritis. Let us note down the clinical features of this condition. So clinically, psoriasis can be of various types. So there are so many different types of psoriasis. Among them, the most common type is known as psoriasis vulgaris. This is chronic stationary type of psoriasis. In this condition, as I told you, you will get erythematous plaques with silvery white scaling. So this is the characteristic scaling which is seen over the lesion. So these are erythematous red colored solid raised lesions which are elevated and they have lot of silvery white scaling, or sometimes referred to as mica like scaling. So this scaling is present and the site involved is generally extensors. Extensors like knee, elbow, back. So over knee, elbow and back of the area, back of the patient, you will get these erythematous plaque with silvery white scaling. But remember that extensors is the most common site, but along with extensors you might get involvement of scalp, palm and sole. So this is the first type, chronic stationary type, psoriasis vulgaris, most common type. But there are other types also like guttate psoriasis. Now guttate psoriasis is usually seen in children, and all of you know this term guttate means dewdrop, very small. So these small scaly erythematous, that is red lesions are seen usually over trunk. So these are the points which you need to remember, that guttate psoriasis usually present in children. Okay, and in children you will get these small scaly erythematous lesions over trunk. This type of psoriasis usually develop after upper respiratory tract infection. So already this question have been asked that which type of psoriasis is associated with upper respiratory tract infection. The answer is guttate psoriasis. So many a times this clue is there in the question that a child developed sore throat infection, streptococcal sore throat infection, and then developed scaly red lesions over skin. Diagnosis. So answer will be guttate psoriasis. Then depending on the site involved, sometimes you can refer to them as scalp psoriasis. Scalp psoriasis if there is only involvement of scalp. Now remember one point here is pityriasis amiantaceae. Okay, so this is the term which is used for thick adherent scales which are seen over the scalp. Okay, so pityriasis amiantaceae is not a disease. Here what happens, whenever the patient present with thick adherent scales over scalp, we call this condition as pityriasis amiantaceae. Thick adherent scales over scalp. Now thick adherent scales over scalp can be seen in so many conditions. Okay, so pityriasis amiantaceae can be seen in so many conditions. One common condition is psoriasis. So if the patient is having underlying psoriasis, what happens, sometimes these scales heap up and they are so many so thickened scales that the underlying skin is not visible, only this thick adherent scales are seen. So the underlying disease is psoriasis, but the presentation is thick adherent scales. Similar condition can occur with Staph aureus infection. So sometimes lot of crusting occurs, and due to which the underlying cause might be Staph aureus, but the patient present with thick adherent scales. Similarly, patient can present with such presentation in lichen simplex and also in seborrheic dermatitis. So sometimes they ask you the causes for pityriasis amiantaceae. So remember, pityriasis amiantaceae can be due to psoriasis, which is a common condition associated with this, but it can also be associated with other conditions like seborrheic dermatitis, lichen simplex, or Staph aureus infection. Sometimes also tinea infection. That is tinea capitis, fungal infection. So scalp psoriasis, if you get these erythematous plaque with the scaling over scalp, we call it scalp psoriasis. Sometimes it can be thickened, we call it pityriasis amiantaceae. Then fourth is palmoplantar psoriasis. Palmoplantar psoriasis is very obvious from the name itself when it is restricted to palm and sole. So if there is involvement of palm and sole, we call it palmoplantar psoriasis. Inverse psoriasis. I already told you that the common site involved in psoriasis is extensor. So normally knee, elbow, back, these are the sites where you will get these lesions, but sometimes opposite occurs, inverse, that is flexors get involved. So if flexors get involved, then we call it inverse psoriasis. Then rheumatoid psoriasis. In rheumatoid psoriasis, you will get limpet-like conical scales. Limpet-like conical scales. Do you know what is limpet? See, limpet is a shellfish which is very adherent to rocks. So are these scales. In this type, the scales are very adherent to the skin and they keep on accumulating upon each other. And when they accumulate, they appear heaped up or conical scales. So such limpet-like heaped up or conical scales are seen in rheumatoid psoriasis. So if you get these thick conical scales, then probably it is rheumatoid psoriasis. Next is clinical signs. Now in these patients who are suffering from psoriasis, always look for the clinical signs, and one very important clinical sign is Auspit sign, which is very important. Already so many times question have been asked. Okay. So what is Auspit sign? When we scratch the lesion, the end result is pinpoint bleeding. This is known as Auspit sign. But before the pinpoint bleeding occur, you can see few more things like, first is Garrettage test. Let us consider this is that erythematous plaque with silvery white scaling of psoriasis, and what you did, you took a glass slide and started scraping it. So when you start scraping this lesion of psoriasis, this silvery white scales, they accentuate, they keep on coming out as you scratch, more and more scales comes out. So this is known as Garrettage test. That is accentuation of scales. Okay. Now let us consider that you are still scrapping the lesion and you have removed all the scales. Now when you remove all the scales, you will find a shiny membrane which is visible, okay, and this shiny membrane, if you try to remove it, this comes out together, okay. So this is known as candle grease sign. Like candle grease, the liquid wax, if it falls over the table, what happens if you try to remove it, it comes out together, okay. So that is known as candle grease sign. So final layer of scales comes out together. This is candle grease sign, okay. Now let us consider you have removed that final layer also. Now when you have removed that final layer, you will find a shiny glistening membrane. So when you remove all the scales, I told you a membrane is seen. This is Berkeley membrane. Many a times you might find surrounded hypopigmented margin, which is known as Warnoff ring. This hypopigmented margin is usually seen when we start phototherapy also, okay. So when we give phototherapy in a patient of psoriasis, what happens? This hypopigmented margin is seen around the lesion. This is due to release of prostaglandins. So this might be the presentation. So first what you have done Geraghty's test, that is you have removed the scales. So when you scrap the lesion, more and more scales comes out. Now when you have removed all the scales, you will find the shiny membrane, sometimes surrounded by Warnoff ring. If you remove this membrane also, this comes out together. This is known as candle grease sign. And when you remove this membrane, you will find pinpoint bleeding spots, and that is known as Auspit sign. So the end result is Auspit sign, that is pinpoint bleeding spots. So what is the end result of scrapping the lesion? The end result is pinpoint bleeding, and this is suggestive of psoriasis, and this sign is known as Auspit sign, okay. Next is histology. Now we will try to understand this histology which is seen in psoriasis, which is very important, with the help of this diagram. Now let us label this diagram. So what are the changes which can be seen in comparison to the normal skin? So normally, as I told you, that normally if you look at the stratum corneum, you will not find nucleus there, isn't it? So nucleus is absent in stratum corneum, but here you can see nucleus in the topmost layer. This is known as parakeratosis. So we have already written the definition of parakeratosis. So there is retention of nucleus in the topmost layer. Then there is granulosis, that is absence of stratum granulosum. Then there is thickening of stratum spinosum. This is known as acanthosis. Then you can see that these dermal papilla, that is the projections of dermis which are going into epidermis, these are enlarged. So dermal papilla are enlarged. So dermal papillas are enlarged. Now when this dermal papilla enlarges, what happens to this space above it? So this space which is present above dermal papilla, this becomes thin. So this is known as suprapapillary thinning. Now there is a lot of T cell infiltration which is occurring in dermis. So dermal T cell infiltration. These dermal vessels, if you examine them, they are generally dilated and tortuous. So you will find dilated and tortuous dermal vessels. Now these dermal vessels are dilated and tortuous. So what happens? From the tip of this dermal papilla, many times the inflammatory cells, they come out and they start collecting here in the epidermis. So these collections are known as Cogos pusceus and Munro's microabscess, and this I already told you, suprapapillary thinning. So you can see so many changes are there in this psoriatic skin, and these changes can be divided into two, that is epidermal changes and the dermal changes. Like in the epidermis, what you can see, parakeratosis, retention of nucleus in the topmost layer. Then you can see absence of stratum granulosum. Then you can see thickening of stratum spinosum known as acanthosis. Then in the epidermis you can see collections of neutrophils. These are known as Monro's microapses and Kogo's pustules. You can also see thinning of the suprapapillary space. Okay, and in the dermis you can see dermal papilla are enlarged. There is a lot of dermal T cell infiltration, and the dermal vessels, they are dilated and tortuous. So due to these changes, what happens, various findings can be associated. Like you can understand that why pinpoint bleeding is seen when we scratch the lesion. So when you scratch the lesion, when you have removed this the topmost layer, that is epidermis, you will find these dermal papilla are enlarged. So these dermal vessels, they are tortuous and they are dilated, so they get exposed, and then this pinpoint bleeding comes out when you scrap the lesion of psoriasis. Now this I already told you that Monro's microapses are superficial, they are generally present in stratum corneum, while Kogo's pustules are deep, they are generally present in stratum spinosum along with the stratum basale, that is Malpighian layer. Then there are few other types of psoriasis, like pustular psoriasis. Now this is very obvious from the name itself, pus. So here the pus filled lesions or pustules are seen, but remember that this pus is sterile. So sterile pustules are seen. What does that mean, sterile pustule? This means that this pus is not infective pus, because this is not infective condition, this is inflammatory condition. So this pus is collection of inflammatory cells. So these sterile pustules are seen. Now sometimes these pustules can be seen over whole body, so this condition can be generalized. This generalized type of pustular psoriasis is known as von Zumbusch disease. Well, sometimes this develops during pregnancy, and in pregnancy this condition is known as impetigo herpetiformis. Already question have been asked on impetigo herpetiformis. Remember, this is what? This is pustular psoriasis in pregnancy. Then second is erythrodermic psoriasis. Erythrodermic psoriasis, again, erythro means red, derma means skin. So this is what? This is erythrodermic psoriasis. So erythrodermic, that is red skin is seen. So whole skin may become red or inflamed. So red or inflamed skin is seen. Now remember that both these conditions usually develop, so both erythrodermic and pustular psoriasis, both these conditions usually develop on withdrawal of systemic corticosteroids. On withdrawal of systemic corticosteroids, so they are contraindicated in psoriasis. So they are contraindicated in psoriasis. Let us try to understand this. See, psoriasis is an inflammatory condition, and if you give steroids in any inflammatory condition, the inflammation subsides. So is the case with psoriasis. So when you start steroids in a patient suffering from psoriasis, his lesions start improving and patient comes back, okay, with telling you that he is having improvement. Now once the improvement has occurred, what you will do? You will taper off these steroids, and when you taper off these steroids, what happens? Rebound phenomena occurs and more inflammation starts and more severe type of psoriasis develops in the form of erythrodermic or pustular psoriasis. So these severe type of psoriasis usually develop on withdrawal of steroids, and that is the reason why steroids are contraindicated in psoriasis. Okay, so you should avoid giving systemic corticosteroid in these patients, because when you will withdraw them, patient might develop severe forms of psoriasis in the form of pustular or erythrodermic psoriasis. Then there is one more type which is known as psoriatic arthritis. So in psoriatic arthritis there is joint involvement, isn't it? Now there are different types of psoriatic arthritis, like one is classic DIP, that is distal interphalangeal joint involvement type. So classic distal interphalangeal joint involvement type. Then asymmetrical oligoarticular type. Then symmetrical polyarticular type. Then arthritis mutilans. Then spondylitis and sacroiliitis type. So these are 5 different types of psoriatic arthritis. One is classic distal interphalangeal joint involvement type, then asymmetrical oligoarticular, symmetrical polyarticular, then arthritis mutilans, and sometimes axial skeleton involvement occurs in the form of spondylitis and sacroiliitis. Okay. Now there are few questions which are asked, and one important question is that which among these is the most common type, and the students make mistake and they mark classic DIP. So remember, the most common is not classic DIP, the most common is asymmetrical oligoarticular type. So this is the most common type. Okay, so remember, most common type is asymmetrical oligoarticular type, but remember the most common joint involved is distal interphalangeal joint. So most common joint involved is distal interphalangeal joint, but the most common type is asymmetrical oligoarticular type. And if you do radiological test, so if you do X-ray, what is the radiological finding which is seen? It is pencil in cup deformity. So pencil in cup deformity is the finding which is seen in psoriasis. Now let us write down one important fact here. Erythroderma, also known as exfoliative dermatitis. So erythroderma or exfoliative dermatitis. Okay, like I told you, pityriasis amiantaceae, it might be present in so many conditions, but the presentation is what? Thick adherent scales over scalp. Similarly, erythroderma, red skin. Now, red skin can be due to so many reasons. Okay, so this is just a presentation. This is not a disease. So erythroderma is not a disease. It is the presentation where the patient presents with red skin. More than 90% of the skin is red in color or inflamed. Now, there can be so many reasons for erythroderma. So, what are the causes of erythroderma? So erythroderma is what? When the more than 90% of the skin is red or inflamed. Okay. It could be idiopathic. Without any reason it can happen. It could be due to drugs. So sometimes patient takes drug and develop drug reaction, and which might lead to erythroderma. Whole skin can become red in color. It can be due to seborrheic dermatitis. Like in HIV positive patients, this can be very severe and whole skin can become red. Like in Sézary syndrome. Later on we will be discussing Sézary syndrome. Then contact dermatitis. Sometimes patient skin comes in contact with certain allergen and whole skin can become red. ABCD. ABCD stands for airborne contact dermatitis. Airborne contact dermatitis generally occur over exposed areas, but if whole skin gets exposed, patient can develop over whole skin. Sometimes atopic dermatitis when it is very severe. Then leukemia and lymphoma patient can present with erythroderma. And obviously psoriasis patient, I told you, erythrodermic psoriasis, and also the patient suffering from pityriasis rubra pilaris. So this is another condition, pityriasis rubra pilaris, where the name itself is suggestive. Rubra means red, so the skin can become red. So this erythroderma can be due to various causes. Okay, so when the patient comes with erythroderma, that is more than 90% of the skin of that patient is red, then you should suspect all these conditions. It could be idiopathic, it could be due to drugs, it could be due to seborrheic dermatitis or Sézary syndrome, it can be due to contact dermatitis or airborne contact dermatitis or atopic dermatitis, it could be due to underlying leukemia, lymphoma, or it could be due to psoriasis or pityriasis rubra pilaris. So there are so many causes, but these are few important ones. Among them, the most common is idiopathic, second most common is drugs. So most common is idiopathic and second most common is drugs, and others you can also remember with this very simple mnemonic, which is scalp. So simply remember ID, scalp. So idiopathic, drug, seborrheic dermatitis, contact dermatitis, ABCD, leukemia, lymphoma, psoriasis. Okay. Next is treatment. Now there are so many agents which can be used in the treatment of this condition, like topical. So topically you can apply corticosteroids. So remember, systemic corticosteroids are contraindicated, but topical corticosteroids can be used. Then you can use keratolytic agents. Keratolytic agents. So what are these? These are keratolytic agents, that is, they help in removing the scales, like salicylic acid. Already question have been asked. Coal tar. So coal tar is also used in psoriasis. Then you can use vitamin D analogs like calcitriol, calcipotriol. You can also use anthralins like diethranol. So if the disease is localized and it is not very severe, you can simply treat with topical agents, but sometimes it is progressively increasing and it is severe, then you need to give systemic agents. The systemic agents which can be used are methotrexate, acitretin, cyclosporin. Now remember that these systemic agents, when they are used in psoriasis for a longer duration, because it is a chronic condition, they might lead to various side effects. Like methotrexate, all of you know, is a hepatotoxic drug, as well as it is teratogenic. Similarly, acitretin, it is teratogenic and it might cause dyslipidemia. Cyclosporin can lead to nephrotoxicity. There are other side effects of cyclosporin as well, which you can very easily remember by 3H. 3H, that is renal hypertension, hypertrichosis, hypertriglyceridemia. So raised triglyceride level, hypertrichosis, increased hair growth at unwanted sites, and renal hypertension. Then you can use phototherapy in these patients. Now phototherapy we have already discussed while discussing vitiligo. So I told you that there are various forms of phototherapy, like you can use PUVA, PUVA-SOL, NB-UVB, targeted phototherapy. So PUVA, P plus UVA, that is psoralen followed by UVA exposure. Here PUVA-SOL, SOL stands for sunlight, that is solar energy, so psoralen followed by sunlight. NB-UVB, that is narrow band UVB phototherapy, so very narrow wavelength of UVB light, that is 311 nanometer. And targeted phototherapy, where we use excimer lasers which emit light in wavelength of 308 nanometers. So these are various forms of phototherapy which can be used here also. Now you need to remember two important names here. One is known as Ingram and other one is Goikerman. So these are regimens, treatment regimens which are used in psoriasis. Okay. Now they are not very commonly used and these are old treatments, but sometimes questions are asked, like once question was asked that Ingram regime is used in and Goikerman regime is used in which of the following condition? Answer was psoriasis. Okay, so these are the specific forms of phototherapy which are used in psoriasis. In Ingram regime, what we do? We give diethranol to the patient. So we apply diethranol and then we expose to light. While here we apply coal tar and then we expose to light. So these names are important. At least remember these two names. Okay, so these are the forms of phototherapy which are used in psoriasis. Then there are various newer drugs, biological drugs which can be used in psoriasis, like you can use infliximab, adalimumab, etanercept. All these are TNF alpha inhibitors. Elifacept, ifalizumab, itolizumab, these are T cell inhibitors. Then secukinumab, which acts on interleukin 17A, so this is anti-interleukin 17A. Ustekinumab, which is anti-interleukin 12 and 23. Apremilast, which is phosphodiesterase 4 inhibitors. So these are various biological drugs, newer drugs which can be used in the cases of psoriasis. Okay. Now remember that this is a chronic condition, okay, and because it is a chronic condition, again and again relapses occurs whatever you use, okay. So depending on the status of the patient, you need to choose various drugs, okay. So initially, if there are few lesions, they are not progressively increasing and patient is having old age, then obviously you should only give topical treatment. But if the patient is young and the disease is progressively increasing, and then you might start with systemic drugs, and phototherapy can be given in these patients. And always remember that while giving phototherapy, you have to cover the eyes, otherwise patient can develop cataract. And biological drugs are the newer drugs, they can be also used, okay. So these are various drugs, and as the effectiveness of these drugs increases, what happens, the toxicity also increases, okay. So like the topical and the phototherapy and the topical treatment is less toxic, but these systemic drugs and biological drugs can be more toxic. Sometimes they directly ask you the question on drug of choice, okay. So they might ask you, what is the drug of choice for psoriatic arthritis? Then your answer should be methotrexate. Erythrodermic psoriasis, the drug of choice is methotrexate. But for pustular psoriasis, the drug of choice is acitretin, okay. Now I told you there is a condition known as impetigo herpetiformis, which is pustular psoriasis in pregnancy. So this pustular psoriasis in pregnancy, when it develops, that is impetigo herpetiformis, then you cannot use acitretin, isn't it, which is the drug of choice for pustular psoriasis, because this is a pregnant patient and you cannot give teratogenic drug. Then another drug, that is methotrexate, cannot be used because this is also teratogenic. So they ask you this question, that what is the drug of choice for pustular psoriasis in pregnancy, that is impetigo herpetiformis, and here the answer becomes systemic corticosteroids. Now you might be wondering that systemic corticosteroids are contraindicated in psoriasis, I told you. So why you are using this as drug of choice in this condition? Because I told you that systemic corticosteroids are contraindicated not because they are not effective. They are contraindicated because when they withdraw them, what happens? Severe types develop. Okay, so because here already the patient is having a severe type and the patient is pregnant, so other effective drugs cannot be used. So that's why systemic corticosteroids, which are safer in pregnancy, which are pregnancy category B drugs, are advised, okay. They take care of the disease, they are non-teratogenic, and once the patient delivers or once we need to withdraw these steroids, we add other drugs, okay. So that's why during pregnancy give corticosteroids. If corticosteroid is not in the option, then you can choose another drug, that is cyclosporin, but never choose acitretin or methotrexate because both are teratogenic. So both these questions have been asked. Once steroid was there in the option, once steroid was not there but cyclosporin was there in the option. So always choose these drugs and never these drugs in pregnant patient. Now remember that these patients who are suffering from psoriasis, they also have nail changes, and nail changes we have already discussed, if you recall, while discussing the nail changes and the structure of the nails. So let us quickly revise. The nail changes which are seen in psoriasis are, I told you a mnemonic also there, that is nail polish. So you will get nail tunneling, pitting, oil drop sign, also onycholysis, L leukonychia. I already told you this P is I, that is irregular pitting, so irregular deep pits are seen, and SH stands for subungual hyperkeratosis. So these are the nail changes which you need to remember. All these nail changes are seen in psoriasis. Now remember, there is one phenomena which is also seen in psoriasis known as Koebner's phenomena, also known as isomorphic phenomena. Now this is very obvious from the name itself, isn't it? Iso means similar, morphic means morphology. So if similar type of morphological lesions develop at the site of trauma, then we call it Koebner's or isomorphic phenomena. So in these patients, what is happening, that wherever the trauma occurs, so wherever trauma occurs or friction occurs, what happens, disease activity start and new lesions might develop at that site. So if the patient have scratched and at the site of a scratch, if the new lesions develop, that is known as Koebner's phenomena. Okay, now this can be seen in so many conditions. So these are the examples of Koebner's phenomena. Like first one is true. True Koebner's phenomena is seen in psoriasis, vitiligo and lichen planus. Now all these conditions are immunologically mediated conditions. So what happens, wherever the trauma occurs, wherever the friction occurs, there the disease activity starts and the immunological process starts and the new similar type of lesions might develop. Okay, so this is due to immunological process. So this is immunologically mediated. But there is one more type that is known as false Koebner's phenomena. False Koebner's. Now false Koebner's phenomena occur due to auto-inoculation. So this is due to auto-inoculation. Now what does that mean? Let us consider that this is the lesion, okay, and the patient scratches. Now when the patient scratches, what happens, that along with the nails of the patient, this infection occurs at a new site. So new lesions develop along the line of trauma, but this is not the true extension. This is due to auto-inoculation of the infection. So because this is usually seen in infective conditions, the examples are so simple to remember. This is seen in infective conditions like warts and molluscum contagiosum. So remember, these are the examples of false Koebner's phenomena. So remember, true Koebner's is due to immunological process like seen in immunological conditions like psoriasis, vitiligo and lichen planus, while false Koebner's is due to auto-inoculation of the infection, so seen in infective conditions like warts and molluscum contagiosum. Okay, so these are the common examples, but there are few rare examples also which are sometimes asked. So let us write down those examples as well. So true and false we have already discussed. Third is occasional. Fourth is reverse. And fifth is remote reverse. So they might ask you that if the common conditions like these psoriasis, vitiligo, lichen planus, these common conditions are not mentioned in the option, then you can choose the occasional conditions. Occasional conditions means these are the conditions where sometimes the Koebner's phenomena is associated. Then there are two more types which are known as reverse Koebner's and remote reverse Koebner's phenomena. So let us try to understand them. Occasional Koebner's phenomena are seen in lichen sclerosus, lichen nitidus, Kaposi sarcoma. Reverse Koebner's phenomena is seen in psoriasis, granuloma annulare, and remote reverse Koebner's phenomena is seen in vitiligo. Now occasional, I already told you that sometimes Koebner's phenomena can be seen associated in these conditions as well. Now what is reverse Koebner's phenomena? Reverse, this is very obvious from the name itself. Reverse, that is opposite. Okay, so normally what happens, new lesions develop at the site of trauma. Okay, but here opposite will happen, that is the lesions will heal at the site of trauma. Okay, now what, let us understand this with one example. Let us consider this is your patient suffering from psoriasis. So this is your patient suffering from psoriasis. In psoriasis both are seen, reverse as well as true Koebner's phenomena. Okay, so reverse Koebner's phenomena, let us try to understand with this example. Let us consider that this is erythematous plaque with silvery white scaling over lower trunk, over lower back in a patient. Okay, now this patient every day goes to his office, wears trousers with belt. Okay, so after few days he noticed that this lesion which was present over lower back started to heal over this site, but it is still persisting over other site. So what has happened? At the site where the belt was there was causing friction, and due to that friction and trauma the lesion has started to heal at that site. So reverse has happened, that is healing of the disease at the site of trauma. So this is known as reverse Koebner's phenomena. Now in vitiligo sometimes remote reverse Koebner's phenomena is seen. Let us try to understand that as well. So let us consider this is the patient who is suffering from vitiligo and this is one lesion. Okay, Now, sometimes when vitiligo patient do not respond to medical treatment, we might do surgery. We place a graft. So, this is a graft which you have taken from thigh and you have placed over this lesion, and normally what happens, this lesion heals. Okay, but this patient was having two lesions, one was here and one was here. Okay, you have done surgery for this lesion and you have not even touched the second lesion. Okay, but when the patient came for follow up, you notice that this lesion have healed because of the surgery, but this lesion which you have not even touched also started to heal. Okay, so you have done surgery here, you have produced trauma here, but the lesion which has started to heal is present over a remote site. So if the healing occur at a remote site from where you have produced surgery or where you have produced trauma, then this is known as remote reverse Kobnus phenomena. Okay, so these are very rare, but just remember the examples. Reverse is seen in psoriasis, remote reverse is seen in vitiligo. That is healing of the lesion at a remote site from where you produce trauma. So here you can see the erythematous plaque of the most common type of psoriasis, that is psoriasis vulgaris. Here you will get these red erythematous lesions. As you can see, all these are red erythematous lesions and they have this characteristic silvery white scaling present over them. So generally patient present with erythematous plaque with silvery white scaling, and you can see the site, back and buttock. So commonly these are present over extensors. So these are the common sites which are involved. I told you scalp psoriasis can occur over scalp. Then extensors are commonly involved like knee, elbow, back area. Okay, buttock area can also get involved, and in flexural psoriasis, which is known as inverse psoriasis, then the flexural areas can get involved, like you can see periumbilical area or groin area. So these are the common sites which can be involved in a case of psoriasis. Here you can see that these erythematous plaque with silvery white scaling are present over trunk, over arms, forearms. Generally they are present over extensors, like here you can see elbow involvement, and if you look at them closely you will find lot of erythema with scaling. Then guttate psoriasis, I told you, they present with very small lesions. So you can see very small scaly lesions present over trunk in a child, and this usually develop after upper respiratory tract infection. Then scalp psoriasis, here over scalp you will get similar type of lesions, that is erythema with scaling. Then inverse psoriasis, I told you, if opposite happens, that is flexors get involved. So here you can see axillary involvement is present, then this is inverse psoriasis. Then Auspitz sign, I told you, when you scrap the lesion, what is the end result? Pinpoint bleeding. Like we have scrapped the lesion here and we saw bleeding spots. Then, so if this is the scaling, if you remove the scale like we have removed from here, you will find this pinpoint bleeding spot. So this is Auspitz sign. And sometimes this hypopigmented margin is seen. This is known as Warnoff ring. Many a times it develops after phototherapy, and commonly these lesions are present over extensors, like you can see over back. Then in histology we have already discussed. Common histological findings can be seen here also. I told you that there is lot of scaling. Okay, so lot of scales are coming out. So you can see there is thick stratum corneum. You will find retention of nucleus in stratum corneum as well. Then dermal papilla are enlarged. So you can see this is normal dermal papilla, while here the dermal papilla are enlarged. So dermal papilla are enlarged. Here these are normal small vessels. Here they are slightly large vessels. Then you can see lot of T cell infiltration. So you can see this is T cell infiltration which is present in dermis. While these many neutrophils, they start coming here and they start collecting, they form micro abscesses. The nail changes, I already told you, nail changes are seen in psoriasis. Here you can see there is onycholysis, that is separation of the nail plate from the underlying nail bed. So this onycholysis has occurred. So onycholysis, and due to this onycholysis, what has happened? The nails which are normally pink in color, once separation occurs, it appears white in color. So you can see leukonychia. So they are appearing white in color. So you can see this leukonychia and onycholysis. Then you can see pits. So these small depressions or pits are seen. So pitting is present. This is irregular and deep pits. Then sometimes severe type of psoriasis develop, that is sterile pustules start developing. You need to look for these pus-filled lesions. So this is pustular psoriasis. Another patient of pustular psoriasis. Sometimes joint involvement might be present. Commonly distal interphalangeal joint is involved, like you can see swollen and inflamed distal interphalangeal joint. Then sometimes what happens, whole sheet of pus is present. This is known as lake of pus. So lake of pus is feature of pustular psoriasis. Then sometimes they might take annular shape. So these pustules, very small pustules are present, but they are present where? at the margins. Okay, so because they are present at the margins, it is giving annular shape. So annular pustular psoriasis, this is a rare variant, but sometimes they might present like this as well. Then erythrodermic, as you can see, whole skin is red and inflamed. So such red and inflamed skin, erythroderma. Now remember, this presentation can be seen in various conditions, but here it is due to psoriasis. It might be due to other causes as well. Then psoriatic arthritis, I told you various joints are involved. Generally distal interphalangeal joint is involved. Then isomorphic phenomena or Kobnus phenomena is seen in psoriasis. In various other conditions also it can be seen, but if similar type of lesions start developing along the line of trauma, patient might have produced trauma here, might have scratched the skin here and then started developing these lesions in linear fashion. Okay, similarly here you can see linear fashion the lesions started to develop. So this is known as Kobnus phenomena. Okay, so these lesions are present in linear fashion. Okay, so this is known as Kobnus phenomena. In papillosquamous disorders, the next condition is lichen planus. Lichen planus. Now lichen planus is an autoimmune condition. Sometimes this condition is seen associated with hepatitis C virus infection. So commonly it is associated with hepatitis C virus infection. It might also be associated with other liver disorders like hepatitis B, primary biliary cirrhosis. Now clinically this condition can involve almost all the parts of the body. It can involve the skin, hair, nails, mucosa. So you might find lesions over skin, hair follicles, nails, mucosa. So various sites can be involved. We will discuss all these features individually also, but first let us write down few important points. Like in skin, what you will get? Over skin you will get 5 P's. 5 P's, that is plain, purple, polygonal, pruritic, papules. So 5 P's of lichen planus: plain topped, purple or violaceous in color, polygonal in shape, very itchy, pruritic, and these are small, less than 0.5 centimeters in size. So these are papules. Sometimes plaques might also be seen, but generally papules. So plain, purple, polygonal, pruritic papules. One characteristic feature of these papules, if you closely examine them, and if you are unable to see, you can just put a drop of oil and see it under hand lens. You will find this net like reticulate pattern. This is known as Wickham's striae. So plain purple polygonal pruritic papules with reticulate pattern known as Wickham striae over them. Okay, so Wickham striae is seen. Now if you examine the hair of the patient, you will get alopecia. So patient develops hair loss, alopecia, and this is scarring type of alopecia. So this is scarring or cicastaceal, that is permanent type of hair loss. Okay, now you might be knowing that pilosebaceous unit, what does pilo stand for? Pilo is for hair follicle, isn't it? So this hair, that is pila, is involved, and that is the reason why this type of lichen planus where pila is involved or hair follicle is involved is known as lichen planopilaris. So pila is involved, hair follicle is involved, leading to alopecia, that is scarring alopecia. This type is known as lichen planopilaris. Now nails get involved. If you recall, there were so many nail changes which we have discussed there. Among them, the most characteristic, so the most characteristic nail change is pterygium. So most characteristic is pterygium. Other than pterygium, you might get so many nail changes. We have already discussed while discussing nails. Let us quickly write down these nail changes. Like you can get anonychia, that is absence of nail plate. Then onychorexia, that is longitudinal ridging over nail plate. Then pup tent sign, and sometimes tracheonychia. See, what is tracheonychia? See, Trachonicia is not just seen in lichen planus, it can be seen in so many other conditions also. And here what happens, rough nails are seen, sandpaper like feel it gives. So these are also known as sandpaper nails. So these rough sandpaper nails are seen, and this can be seen in various conditions, and you can very easily remember these conditions by this simple mnemonic, that is pale. It can be seen in psoriasis, alopecia areata, lichen planus and eczema. So Trachonicia can be seen in various conditions. One among them is lichen planus. It can also be seen in psoriasis, alopecia areata and eczema. But remember, the most important is pterygium. Already question have been asked. Then mucosa also get involved. Now what you will get over mucosa? Over mucosa you will get lacy or reticulate pattern. This pattern is white in color. So this is white lacy or reticulate pattern. But there are few types of mucosal lichen planus. One is known as erosive or ulcerative type. So when patient develops erosive or ulcerative type of oral lichen planus, then this is the type which can lead to squamous cell carcinoma. Okay, so remember that all the types of lichen planus are pre-malignant? No. Then which type is pre-malignant? Erosive or ulcerative type. So remember, lichen planus is not a pre-malignant condition, but this specific variant, that is the erosive or ulcerative type of oral lichen planus, it can lead to squamous cell carcinoma. So sometimes they might ask you this. So remember, this is the only type which generally lead to squamous cell carcinoma. So what we have just now seen, that in all these different sites you might get the lesions of lichen planus, and if you want to remember all these lesions, you just need to remember one alphabet, and that alphabet is lichen planus, P for planus. So you just need to remember P. So over skin, look for 5 P's, that is plain, purple, polygonal, pruritic papules. Then you need to examine pila, that is hair follicle, because this can cause lichen planopilaris, and when hair follicles get involved, patient develops scarring alopecia. The most characteristic nail change is also starting with P, that is pterygium. Also remember pup tent sign, and mucosa also get involved, and over mucosa what you will get pattern, and this pattern is lacy, reticulate, white in color. Okay, so just with one alphabet P you can remember all these features, that is the features over skin, features over hair follicle, features over nails and features over mucosa. Now there are so many different types of lichen planus. We are not going to discuss all the types of lichen planus, but at least write down few important ones where different types of lesions can be seen. Okay, so generally we see 5 P's, but sometimes different types of lesions can be seen, like hypertrophic lichen planus. In hypertrophic what happens? Thick lesions are seen, thick lichenified lesions are seen. Then actinic lichen planus. So actinic term is used when the lesions are present over sun exposed sites. So when sun exposed areas are involved, we call it actinic lichen planus. Like I told you, there is annular type of pustular psoriasis. Similarly, if annular lesions are seen in lichen planus, we call it annular lichen planus. I already told you, when hair involvement occur, we call it lichen planopilaris. Similarly, sometimes pigmented lesions are seen. So this is known as lichen planus pigmentosus. Sometimes fluid-filled lesions are seen. This is known as lichen planus pemphigoides. Okay. Now, once this question was asked that which of the following is not a type of lichen planus, first option was lichen planopilaris, second was lichen planus pigmentosus, lichen planus pemphigoides, and fourth option was lichen scleroderma. So, can you recall, lichen scleroderma is not a type of lichen planus. What is this? This is the type of tuberculid, isn't it? So remember that lichen term is present, but this is not a type of lichen planus. Okay, this is what? This is the type of tuberculid. So these are 6 types of lichen planus which you can remember. There are various other types also, but at least remember these 6. Now, if you take biopsy from these lesions, you will get so many histological changes, and these histological changes of lichen planus are important. So, let us note down all the histological changes which might be seen. First one is basal cell degeneration, cavity or colloid bodies. Already question have been asked on cavity and colloid bodies, also on basal cell degeneration. You can write down one point here, cavity bodies. What are cavity bodies? These are degenerating basal keratinocytes. So degenerating, so apoptotic basal keratinocytes or degenerating basal keratinocytes are known as cavity bodies. Melanin incontinence, melanophages, maxos of spaces, saw-toothed appearance. Just now I will explain what are these. First note down. Hypergranulosis, irregular acanthosis, band-like lymphocytic infiltrate in upper dermis, so band-like lymphocytic infiltrate in upper dermis. And last one is interface dermatitis. So these are the various histological features which are seen in lichen planus. Let us try to understand them. Let us consider this is stratum basale, that is the lowermost layer of epidermis. And what is happening here? There is degeneration. So basal cell degeneration is occurring. So at places this is degenerating. So this is what? This is basal cell degeneration. Now, when this degeneration occurs, what happens? These degenerating basal keratinocytes will be seen. So, these degenerating basal keratinocytes are known as cavity bodies or colloid bodies. Okay. Now, the melanin which is present here in epidermis, through these spaces from the side where this degeneration has occurred, they come down. So, this is known as melanin incontinence. That is, melanin has come down into the dermis. Now, once the melanin have come down into the dermis, what happens? The dermal macrophages which are present, they go and engulf this melanin. So these macrophages which contain melanin are known as melanophages. So melanin containing macrophages are known as melanophages. So melanophages might be seen. So this is normal cross section of skin. This is epidermis. This is dermis. Okay. Now what happens in lichen planus? There is basal cell degeneration. So at places this basal layer have degenerated. Now because this basal layer have degenerated at places, you will find that these rater edges which are normally club shaped have now changed their shape and they are appearing something like this. That is saw-toothed. They are appearing as if they are pointed, isn't it? And these spaces which are formed, these spaces, empty spaces which are formed due to degeneration, these are known as maxos of spaces. So these are maxos of spaces. Now what is hypergranulosis? It is thickening of stratum granulosum. So let us consider this is stratum granulosum and it has thickened. Now remember that this hypergranulosis of lichen planus is wedge shaped. It is something like this. Okay. So let us consider this is that wedge shaped hypergranulosis. So this is something like this, wedge shaped. Okay. So this wedge shaped hypergranulosis is seen and in between the stratum spinosum is thickened. So this thickening of stratum spinosum is known as acanthosis and it is at places. So this is irregular acanthosis. So in epidermis you will get wedge shaped hypergranulosis and irregular acanthosis. Now Because there is basal cell degeneration, lot of inflammatory cells, they start moving towards that layer and they start collecting just beneath the basal cell layer. So they start collecting just beneath the basal cell layer here in upper dermis. So in upper dermis, you will get the collection of these inflammatory cells or lymphocytes, and this collection in the upper dermis looks like a band. So this band like lymphocytic infiltrate is seen in upper dermis. Okay. And just now you have seen that most of the changes are occurring where? In the lower portion of epidermis and the upper portion of dermis, like basal cell degeneration in the lower portion and band like lymphocytic infiltrate in the upper portion. So these two together, that is basal cell degeneration and band like lymphocytic infiltrate in the upper dermis, this together is occurring where? At the interface of epidermis and dermis. So this is known as interface dermatitis. So all the inflammation is at the interface. Okay, so this is interface dermatitis. So these are various histological findings which are seen, and sometimes these questions are asked, like already questions have been asked on wedge-shaped hypergranulosis, saw-toothed appearance, Max-Joseph spaces, Civati bodies, so remember them. Okay, one important fact, I told you Wickham striae are seen. So Wickham striae are seen in lichen planus. Now remember that this Wickham striae is due to this pathological finding. So this histopathological finding is the reason for Wickham striae, and that is wedge-shaped hypergranulosis. So if they ask you that which histological finding corresponds to Wickham striae, the answer will be wedge-shaped hypergranulosis. Next is treatment. Because this is an autoimmune condition, here we need to give immunosuppressants. Commonly we use steroids. You can use potent topical steroids. If the disease is progressively increasing, you may use systemic steroids. If the lesion is localized and it is very thick, like in hypertrophic type of lichen planus, we can give intralesional steroids. Then other immunosuppressants can be used, like you can use azathioprine. There is also role of dapsone. If the condition is generalized, phototherapy can be used. So here you can see this is a patient suffering from lichen planus. Here these plain purple, slightly polygonal, they are not all circular, slightly polygonal, violaceous and very itchy lesions are present, and all of them are less than 0.5 centimeter in size. So these are what? These are plain purple polygonal pruritic papules of lichen planus. So you can see the violaceous color, small lesion, they are very itchy conditions and they are not always circular, you might get slightly polygonal lesions. Then oral mucosa can also get involved. I told you over buccal mucosa you might get this white lacy pattern. As you can see, this is having lacy margins. So lacy pattern is seen. Sometimes reticulate pattern is seen. So white lacy or reticulate pattern is seen over buccal mucosa. Then nail pterygium is seen. You will find this proximal nail fold, this extends. So this extends, and gradually as it extends, it attaches itself to the underlying nail bed and this nail plate is destroyed. So this wing shaped projection is seen, this is known as pterygium, and as it destroys the nail plate, it might lead to anonychia, that is absence of nails, and sometimes the nail plate get lifted in the central portion leading to puptent sign. Then there can be erosive type of lichen planus, you might get erosions and these reticulate patterns might be seen. Then lichen planus can involve hair follicles. I told you the type is known as lichen planopilaris, where initially you will get hyperpigmented follicular prominences and gradually they will heal with scarring. So this is permanent type of hair loss, this is scarring type of hair loss, and these hair roots are permanently damaged. Then hypertrophic variant of lichen planus, where you will find thick skin, so very thick lichenified skin might be present. Then lichen planus pigmentosus, where you will find this pigmented lesion, so pigmented lesion might be present. So this is pigmentosus. Then in histology, I already told you that the rete ridges are slightly pointed or saw-toothed. So you can see these saw-toothed rete ridges. So instead of club shape, they are saw-toothed. Then you will find lot of lymphocytic infiltrate, and this infiltrate, as you can see, this bluish infiltrate. in the upper dermis. So this band like lymphocytic infiltrate might be present in upper dermis. Now this is stratum corneum and below this is stratum granulosum. So this is stratum granulosum and you can see this is stratum granulosum is something like this. This is wedge shaped. So wedge shaped stratum granulosum is seen. So this is thickened and it is wedge shaped. So this is wedge shaped hypergranulosis. So these are various changes which might be seen in lichen planus. Now the third papillosquamous condition is pityriasis rosea. Like from the name of this condition, you can easily assess that pityriasis means scaling. So lesions are going to be scaly, and rosea is for rose, and rose is red or pink in color. So these are erythematous or red lesions. So in this condition, you will get erythematous scaly lesions. Now there are so many features which you need to remember in this condition, and I am going to give you a very simple mnemonic to remember all these features. This mnemonic is slightly weird, but try to bear with me and remember this. So remember this simple sentence, and if you remember this sentence, you can remember all the features of pityriasis rosea, and that sentence is her trunk and cigarette on fire. So her trunk and cigarette on fire, her. So remember this condition is more common in her than his, okay. So this is more common in females. It is associated with Herald patch. Herald patch is also known as mother patch. Already question have been asked. So remember Herald patch. Herald patch is seen in pityriasis rosea. And what is Herald patch? This is the first patch of pityriasis rosea which usually develops over trunk. And this is seen associated with herpes virus infection, like commonly human herpes virus 7 as well as 6. So from this her, you can remember 3 points. Common in females, Herald patch associated with herpes virus infection. Trunk is the most common site which is involved. So the most common site which is involved in this condition is trunk. Lesions have scaling, and this is cigarette paper scaling. This disease heals on itself, that is, it is a self-limiting condition. And in these patients, the first lesion is Herald patch, and later on multiple lesions start developing, and these lesions, they go along the line of ribs, that is, they go in downward direction, and when they are moving in downward direction, they give which appearance? They give fir tree or Christmas tree appearance. Like, let us consider this is the female patient who is suffering from pityriasis rosea. Initially, over her trunk, she will develop this first patch. This is known as Herald patch. Okay. Now, after this first patch, so after mother, so this is mother patch. After mother comes daughters. So daughter lesions start developing, and these daughter lesions are smaller lesions, and they follow this distribution. That is, they are present along the line of ribs on either side. So because they are going in downward direction, they give which appearance? Yes, they give fir tree like appearance. Okay. Now, if you closely examine these lesions, you will find all these lesions have very fine scaling. So if you examine these lesions, you will find all these lesions, they have fine scaling, and this scaling is present at the periphery like a collar. So this is also known as collarette of scales. So collarette of scales is seen in pityriasis rosea. So this collar like scales, very fine cigarette paper like scales is seen. Okay. Now if you closely examine these scales, you will find that these scales, they are attached at the periphery, but their free edges are on the inner side. They are something like this. That is, the outer edges are attached and the inner edges are free. Okay. Now these free edges, they become more prominent if you stretch the lesion. Like if this is the lesion and you stretch on either side. So if you stretch the lesion, what will happen to these free edges? So if these are the edges and you are stretching the lesion like this, so if you stretch the lesion, these free edges, they roll along the line of stretch. Okay. So they roll along the line of stretch. So this rolling of the edges gives which sign? So this is known as hanging curtain sign. So hanging curtain sign is seen. Why it is known as hanging curtain sign? Because it is very similar to hanging curtains, isn't it? Like all of you might have seen the curtains which are hanging, they have a string attached to it. So if you pull that string, what happens? The curtains roll, isn't it? So when you pull the string, the curtains roll. So this is known as hanging curtain sign. That is when you pull the lesion, when you stretch the lesion, the free edges, they roll along the line of stretch. So these are various points, and because this is a self-limiting condition, so no specific treatment is required, only counseling is required. You simply need to tell the patient that and give reassurance that don't worry, it will gradually heal within few weeks. Generally it takes 4 to 6 weeks to completely heal. Okay, so these are the points which you need to remember. I have given you this mnemonic, and with the help of this mnemonic you can remember almost all the points except for this sign, that is hanging curtain sign. So if you want to remember this also with the help of mnemonic, you can keep one more thing on fire, and that can be curtains. Okay, so not only her trunk and cigarette, her curtains are also on fire. Okay, then fourth condition is pityriasis rubra pilaris, and from the name itself you can make out that pityriasis means scaling. This rubra terms, all of you know, means red, and pila, I told you, it is the term used for hair follicles. So this means the lesions are follicular. So from the name itself you know that it is related to hair follicle. The lesions are going to be red and scaly. Okay, so now you can very easily understand how these patients present. They present with follicular prominences with orange to red hue. So they present with scaly follicular prominences with orange to red hue, usually over trunk. Okay, so over trunk. So scaly follicular prominences with orange to red hue over trunk, with areas of normal skin in between. So with areas of normal skin in between. So let us consider that this is your patient. Okay, now this patient over trunk is developing multiple scaly follicular red prominences, but there are few areas in between which are still normal. So these areas of normal skin are known as islands. So these are islands of normal skin. And over other sides, what you are getting? You are getting this scaly red to orange follicular prominences. So this is the presentation. These patients, they present with red scaly follicular prominences over trunk with areas of normal skin in between. They generally develop in cephalocaudal direction. So these lesions, they usually develop in cephalocaudal direction, and in severe cases may lead to erythroderma. So I already told you one of the cause of erythroderma is PRP. So they might lead to erythroderma, that is more than 90% of the skin can become red. Now this scientist Griffith, he classified this pityriasis rubra pilaris into 6 types. Okay, so this is known as Griffith's classification. Initially he classified into 5 types and later the 6th type was added. So remember, there are 6 types according to Griffith's classification. No need to remember all these types because this is not a very common disorder which is asked in exam. This is a rare condition. Just remember the 6th type which was later added was HIV associated. So there are 5 types and the 6th one is HIV associated PRP. For the treatment, you can use topical agents like topical corticosteroids. Because the lesions are scaly, you can give keratolytic agents like salicylic acid. And the systemic drug which is effective is acitretin. That is a oral retinoid. Now the next condition is lichen nitidus. Lichen nitidus. Now this is also not very common condition and this is a rare condition. Only few points which you need to remember in this condition are, first of all, clinical features. So how this condition clinically presents? It clinically presents with grouped but discrete, and they are very small, tiny pinhead sized papules. Okay, so they are grouped, they are separate from each other, discrete, and they are very tiny pinhead size, like the head of the all pin. So pinhead sized papules. Okay, so this is the common presentation. Now the sites are very characteristic: over, elbow, forearm, dorsum of hand, and also over shaft of penis. So if you get these grouped, discrete, tiny pinhead sized papules over elbow, forearm, dorsum of hand and shaft of penis, then suspect lichen nitidus. If you take biopsy from these lesions, you will get a characteristic appearance. And what is that? Let us try to understand. See, if this is the lesion, just beneath the lesion, what you will get? You will get lymphocytic infiltrate. And this lymphocytic infiltrate is surrounded by these elongated rete ridges. So this is epidermis, this is dermis, these projections are rete ridges. So these projections of rete ridges, they are surrounding what? This lymphocytic infiltrate. So this lymphocytic infiltrate looks like a ball, while this elongated rete ridges, they look like claw, isn't it? So it appears as if this claw of rete ridges is holding this ball, isn't it? So this is known as ball in claw appearance, also known as claw clutching appearance. So it appears as if this claw is clutching this lymphocytic infiltrate or ball. So this ball in claw appearance is the histological finding which is seen in lichen nitidus. So these are the points which you need to remember. Clinically, these type of lesions over these sites and on histology giving ball in claw appearance is the presentation. Treatment, here also you can use topical corticosteroids and systemic acitretin. So here you can see this is a patient suffering from pityriasis rosea. In pityriasis rosea, I told you initially what happens, a Herald patch develop and later on multiple small lesions develop, and these lesions are generally red in color, so they are erythematous, they have very fine scaling, and these lesions usually start developing over trunk. So over trunk, if you get these red scaly lesions, then suspect pityriasis rosea. The initial patch, the initial lesion is known as Herald patch. So this is the first lesion. This is Herald patch, also known as mother patch, and this mother patch have scaling. If you closely see, this scaling is present at the periphery. So very fine cigarette paper like scales are present at the periphery. Their free edges are something like this on the inner side. So if you stretch the lesion, you will find these free edges roll along the line of stretch. And if this, let us consider this is the first patch. If you see that multiple small lesions, they start developing, and if you closely examine, you will find they go in downward direction like this, giving which appearance? Fir tree like appearance. So they give fir tree like appearance. This is a case of pityriasis rubra pilaris. I told you pityriasis means scaly, so lesions are scaly. They are red in color, so you can see so erythematous and red colored lesions. They are pilaris, that is they have follicular prominences. So if you palpate them, you will find these prominences are present, and gradually what happens, it develops from cephalocaudal direction and it keep on increasing and can lead to erythroderma or exfoliative dermatitis. That is more than 90% of the skin can be inflamed or red. Like in this case, you can see majority of the skin is inflamed and red. How to diagnose? You will find areas of normal pigmentation in between. So you can see these islands of normal skin. So these are islands of normal skin in between. So they are very characteristic and they will be seen in between. Okay, so this is the presentation which is seen in pityriasis rubra pilaris. Lichen nitidus, I told you there is a very characteristic appearance that is known as claw clutching appearance. You will find this lymphocytic infiltrate which looks like a ball and these elongated rete ridges which look like a claw. So claw clutching or ball in claw appearance. Then let us discuss one question. Here they said that 7-month pregnant lady. So patient is pregnant and following lesions over her body, and if you look at the lesions were pustular. So you can see pustular lesions were present. shows multiple small pustules over skin, which is the drug which is appropriate for treatment. Okay, now whenever you see pus filled lesions, that is pustules, what comes to your mind? So you saw the image and you saw pustules, pus filled lesions. What comes to your mind first? Infection, isn't it? Pus is generally due to infection. And then you saw the options. Antibiotics were not mentioned. Okay, so if it is a pustular or infective condition, then they would have mentioned antibiotic in the option, isn't it? So they are not asking about infective pustules. They are asking about what? Sterile pustules. And we know that sterile pustules are seen in psoriasis. So probably this is a case of psoriasis. So first clue is that antibiotics are not mentioned in the option. The examiner is not asking about infective causes of this pustule. Okay, so first clue. Second clue is, if you look at the image, you will get red skin. So skin is erythematous, and you can see scaling is also present. So scaling is also present. So whenever you find erythematous lesions with silvery white scaling, you should think of psoriasis, and because pustules are present, this is pustular psoriasis and the patient is pregnant. So examiner is talking about impetigo herpetiformis, that is pustular psoriasis of pregnancy. I told you the drug of choice is systemic corticosteroids, but that is not there in the option. So systemic corticosteroid is not there in the option. I told you if it is not there, what to choose? Cyclosporin. Then cyclosporin becomes the answer. Methotrexate and retinoid, both are teratogenic and they should not be used. And because this is a systemic condition, this is a severe condition, azathioprine takes time to show its response. So this is a slow drug. So you need to give what? Cyclosporin, which is very effective in these cases. Okay, so if systemic steroid is there, choose that. If that is not there, then cyclosporin. So this is how you need to approach to this question. So answer will be cyclosporin. Now a child comes with pinhead sized. Okay, so pinhead sized, discrete but grouped papules over shaft of penis, forearm. This elbow is mission, right elbow. So these are the sites and these are the lesions. Yes, examiner is talking about which condition? Yes, lichen nitidus. Then hyperpigmented follicular plug lesions on frontal scalp and hairline. What is the diagnosis? Okay, so remember that when patient develops lichen planopilaris, what happens initially? These hyperpigmented follicular plug lesions are seen and gradually they heal, leaving behind scarring alopecia. Okay, so because follicular term is mentioned here and there is this condition, that is lichen planopilaris, which can lead to this hyperpigmented follicular plug lesions. So that's why the answer is lichen planus pilaris. We know that pigmented lesions are not mentioned, instead follicular lesions are mentioned. So this is pilaris and this is not pigmentosus. Telogen effluvium and alopecia areata do not present with any hyperpigmented or plug lesions. There is only hair loss which is present. Skin is perfectly normal. There is no change over the skin. There is only complaint of hair loss. So these are not the answer. The answer is lichen planus pilaris. So we have already discussed few biological drugs like infliximab, adalimumab, etanercept, secukinumab, ustekinumab, efalizumab. So all these biological drugs are used in psoriasis. There are few recent biological drugs also which are under trial and some of them have been launched also, like ixekizumab. This is anti-interleukin 17A. Brodalumab, which also binds to interleukin 17 receptor A. Then tofacitinib and baricitinib. This is Janus kinase inhibitor, so JAK inhibitor. Then golimumab and citrolizumab, these are TNF alpha inhibitors. Then breakinumab, tredalizumab and guselkumab, these are anti-interleukin 23, and voclosporin, which is similar to cyclosporin, which is calcineurin inhibitor. So these are few recent drugs which you can remember.